People who are poor and without parents are out of the question.
After making that declaration, the CEO forcefully splashed the water from his glass onto my sister.
Understood. In that case, please consider the $200 million deal null and void.
That we are.
My name is John Strong. I work in sales at a real estate company. I'm in my 40s and I've been so focused on my work that I've remained single up to this point. People around me often suggest I should marry, but the concepts of marriage and family somehow don't resonate with me. Perhaps it's because of the environment I grew up in. Since losing my parents in an accident as a child, I have lived with just my sister Alice. She scrimped and saved in various ways to raise me. To me, my sister has been more like a parent, really. I remember her working multiple part-time jobs as if it were yesterday, always busy. I'm not in a hurry to get married, but it seems the other party is quite enthusiastic. I was asked by the sales rep, and since the introduction was made by a CEO we do business with, I agreed to go ahead and arrange the meeting as suggested.
That's fantastic. Is the lady the daughter of a CEO marrying into that kind of family? You'd be set.
So, how does your schedule look like that day? I won't force you, but I'd like you to come if you can.
If they're bringing a parent, it only makes sense for my sister, who's my only family, to be there too.
Sure, I can make it. It's your big day after all. I'd better book a hair appointment right away.
My sister was as excited as if it were her own affair, getting ready with such eagerness. Just seeing her like this made me feel it was worth agreeing to this setup. Just seeing her like this made me feel it was worth agreeing to this setup. The day of the meeting finally arrived. It was just me and my sister on our side. On their side, it was Emily Carter and her father.
It's just like that bull. It's truly a pleasure to introduce a fine and earnest young man like you, John.
18. Well, we were nervous. The CEO was the only one chatting away with ease. I guess speaking in public comes naturally with his job.
Listen, if you were to marry my daughter, you'd be set for life. After all, a company is currently negotiating a huge deal. Just between us, it's a transaction worth $300 million.
Emily's intervention was a relief to me.
Speaking about the CEO becoming my father-in-law, if I married her gave me pause.
By the way, I see your sister here with you today. What about your parents?
Yes, my parents passed away when I was young.
To the CEO's question, I explained our situation. As I continued, I could see the CEO's expression turning grimmer.
What, is that so? And John, you mean to tell me your only family is your sister?
Reflecting on my life, I couldn't help but feel deeply indebted to my sister once more. I've never seen my sister just lounging around. Absent in my memories, she's always been a whirlwind of activity, juggling household chores and work.
Stan was saying, part-time jobs. I can't entertain the idea of a match with someone who leads such a poor life and only has to shiver for family. To think you had the audacity to assume you could marry Emily, the CEO's daughter, to boldly go through with a blind date. That's the problem with poor folks. They are shamelessly presumptuous. Someone without parents and poor to boot is completely out of the question. Decent thing, you had the audacity to assume you could marry Emily, the CEO's daughter, to boldly go through with a blind date. That's the problem with poor folks. They are shamelessly presumptuous. Someone without parents and poor to boot is completely out of the question. Someone without parents and core to boot is completely out of the question.
After his cutting remark, the CEO flung the water from the glass on the table towards my sister.
Hey, Dad, what are you doing?
What's the meaning of this?
Emily looked pale as she stared at her father, appalled by his atrocious behavior. Actual prayant-footed cries. I was beyond furious and leaned in to retort. But at that moment, my sister, who had remained silent and still, stopped me. Formerly mild-mannered, my sister now fixed the CEO with a gaze so cold it was startling. For beside her, I could feel the intensity of her anger radiating in waves. Despite her hair getting wet and droplets falling from it, my sister spoke up with a dignified voice.
Understood. Then please consider the $200 million null and void.
Ah, what was said?
The CEO let out a sound involuntarily, as if he couldn't help himself. We were just as confused as he was. Everyone except for my sister was frozen in place, unsure of what was happening. What on earth was my sister talking about? Unable to comprehend, I just stared at her stern profile.
Null and void, who do you think you are?
Since you've deemed our proposal as out of the question, I'm simply saying we should consider the deal null and void too.
She maintained a very calm demeanor, but to me, who has been with her as family for so long, it was clear she was truly furious. Deep down,
Listen, what do you want about? You think you can talk back to me? Even calling us sour grapes would be ridiculous. But from our family business, Davis Manufacturing, is in talks with the famed East Capital Tech Innovations. What possible connection could you, a nobody, have with them?
I hate to side with this CEO, but just this once, I agree. What kind of relationship could possibly exist between the CEO's business negotiations and my sister?
I am a major shareholder in East Capital Tech Innovations.
Oh, give me that nonsense. Even as a joke, it's not funny.
The boss turned his face away in displeasure. I too found it hard to believe what my sister had said on the spur of the moment. The inheritance left by our parents was meager, and recalling the simple life my sister and I had lived, it seemed impossible that she could be wealthy enough to hold a large amount of stock in a renowned company. My sister worked multiple part-time jobs from dawn to dusk just to put me through college. Growing up, I saw her constantly being called away at a moment's notice, so the idea that she had the means to invest in stock seemed far-fetched. The most luxurious thing we could afford is buying a cake for Christmas, which was our modest celebration. Yet my sister stood there, unfazed by our gazes, confidently owning the space.
If you find it curious, please go ahead and verify it. My name is James Strong. It's listed on the homepage of East City Tech Innovation.
With my sister's unwavering look upon him, the CEO begrudgingly took out his smartphone. Then in the next instant, he said, "No way, that's ludicrous." Depreciation, it appears that my sister's name was actually listed there. When I checked myself, there it was. Jane Strong, my sister's name, was clearly written as a key shareholder of East City Tech Innovation.
Believable. How on earth could such a pauper become a shareholder? What sort of error could allow?
CEO, while holding his head and moaning, scoured the homepage from end to end, as if praying he was mistaken. Then, with a grimace like he'd bitten into a sour grape, he eked out his voice, even. If Jane Strong really is a major shareholder, don't get too cocky, you pauper. The CEO, breathing heavily through his nose, gave my sister a fierce look. So what about a mere $200 million? For company's size, $200 million is chump change. They couldn't believe these were the same lips that moments ago were bragging so much about a $200 million deal. I was utterly astounded. Does this person have any other criteria for making decisions, or is it just money? Maybe it takes such an obsession with cash to build such a massive corporation in just one generation, but I can't help feeling that's not the right way to judge everything. However, I can't help but feel that it's not fair to judge everything based solely on money, even if it takes an obsession with cash to build such a massive corporation in just one generation.
Go ahead, try it, and I don't think for a second that you can bring down my company with that. We've got plenty of other big players we deal with.
Is that so?
It's in stark contrast to the CEO, who is insistent to the point of spitting. My sister simply replied coolly with a single sentence.
Listen, I'm dead serious here. Don't come crying and apologizing later, because I won't accept it. Wait a second, this whole story is nonsense. Man, I almost let my guard down. You know, to think I almost got fooled by someone like you, that was a close call. Geos, different players. And now I almost let my guard down. To think I almost got fooled by someone like you, that was a close call.
The CEO, laughing uproariously by himself, looked at my sister.
You assert yourself with such confidence that I almost believed you. The major shareholder listed here isn't you, it's someone with the same name, isn't it? And nonetheless, you did a good job finding of that person.
What the CEO meant to say, it seems, is that the Jane Strong listed as a major shareholder on the East Tech Innovations website is just another person with the same name as my sister. But could there really be such a convenient coincidence?
If you don't want to believe it, that's your prerogative.
My sister replied indifferently as she dried her wet hair and clothes with a towel borrowed from the store. However, the CEO, confident in his opinion, began to argue back vigorously.
I don't care. There's no way a poor kid without parents could work part-time and become a major shareholder. Even if the name's the same, you probably don't even know what kind of company East Tech Innovations is. Do you? I happen to be acquainted with the chairman over there.
The CEO, now smug, bragged with a hearty laugh, unasked.
Yeah, that's enough. I did.
Emily tried to interject, but the CEO berated my sister even more.
How can I stay silent when we're being ridiculed like this? You have the right to be angry too, Emily. We were almost fooled into marrying into a poor family like theirs. How can you say such things? We were almost fooled into marrying into a poor family like theirs. You have a right to be angry too, Emily.
Stop it, Dad.
As we get tied to these poor folks, we'll be the laughing stock. It would have been a huge embarrassment.
Just hearing that, I couldn't hold back any longer. I didn't care if they talked about me, but I couldn't stand them belittling my sister who raised me like a parent. As I raised my voice, it seemed CEO had shifted his target to me.
When my buddy introduced you, I was expecting a hotshot real estate salesman from a major company, but to think you're just a poor orphan and your only remaining sister works part-time, which isn't even worth mentioning.
That the CEO, while looking me in the eye, was dripping with sarcasm as he kept on attacking me. It was true I got into a top real estate firm due to my own efforts, but a huge part of that was thanks to my sister's support. She lived frugally every single day to get me through college, even had times when she wouldn't buy more clothes than the bare minimum needed for decency.
What kind of underhanded tricks did you use to get into a famous company? Did you forge your college on your resume or write some lies, considering you're the brother of a poor person who pretends to be a shareholder? Nothing would surprise me.
Smirking, the CEO alternately looked at me and my sister, mocking us. I didn't want to breathe the same air as this disrespectful man any longer.
At least, by my silence, he turned his gaze back to my sister. What's the matter, poor girl? Come on, no comeback. Struck silent. By bad the truth. Are you, Doc, do you mind not a comeback? Struck silent by the truth. Like, you claim to be a shareholder, don't you? Have any other proof? Now's the time to show it.
If you need evidence that much, I'll show you now.
She murmured softly and then began to make a phone call.
Is now a good time? Yes, the location is. It seems she was arranging for someone to come here. This should be good. I wonder who could be gracing us with their presence.
It seemed she was arranging for someone to come here. I wonder who could be gracing us with their presence. The CEO kept pestering my sister in a snide manner, but she remained unfazed with a calm expression. Maybe some uncle will come by with local sweets as a greeting. I'm not interested in mass-produced cheap treats, though. Well, we'll see. You just wait and see. After that, my sister clammed up completely, responding with nothing more than wells, or is that so? No matter how much the CEO tried to engage her. Eventually, it seemed he lost his enthusiasm and fell silent, leading to an awkward silence that lingered for a while. What on earth was my sister planning, and whom had she called?
This should be good. I wonder who could be gracing us. Their presence. Maybe some uncle will come by with local sweets as a greeting. I'm not interested in mass-produced cheap treats, though. Give it a rest, will you? I have no interest in meeting some poor person's acquaintance. Go back to the countryside and work the fields. Even that fancy suit looks pitiful on you. Wouldn't you be either suited in rubber boots working the land?
About 30 minutes later, a man walked into the room. The man, who looked to be in his 70s, was dressed in what seemed to be a very expensive suit. Of course, he wasn't a relative of mine, nor did I recognize him. He hugged my sister exaggeratedly, almost too zealously. I was wondering about their relationship when the CEO raised his voice irritably. Hey you, yes you, who do you think you are? Walking in here all of a sudden. I am, he replied. As the man was about to reply, my sister smoothly raised her hand.
Apologies for the wait. Sorry for the sudden call. This is Carter from Carter Manufacturing.
Allow me to introduce him. This gentleman is a colleague from my workplace.
I thought as much. Give it a rest, sweet. I have no interest in meeting some poor person's acquaintance.
I am Carter from Carter Manufacturing.
Oh, you really don't know him?
There's no way I would know such a person from the poor crowd. Are you looking for a handout? Go back to the countryside and work the fields. Even that fancy suit looks pitiful on you, wouldn't you? Be better suited in rubber boots working the land?
CEO spat out the words with irritation, but my sister just smiled sweetly and retorted, "That's strange. You said earlier that you knew him."
You never said any such thing.
But this gentleman here is Carter, the chairman of Eastern Tech Innovations, a company I've been fortunate to work with. What? I never said any such thing.
The CEO stood with his mouth agape. I also couldn't believe what was happening right in front of me.
Nice to meet you. Please keep me in mind.
Printed on the card was indeed the title of Chairman of Eastern Tech Innovations.
You said you were acquainted with the chairman of Eastern Tech Innovations, didn't you?
Well, the thing is,
That you're important despite his earlier bragging about knowing him. It seems like it was the CEO's first time meeting the chairman of Eastern Tech Innovations. But ignoring the CEO, my sister and the chairman were chatting away like old friends.
I'm always so grateful for your help. Not at all, it's me who should be thankful. Oh no, I'm just part-time at best.
Don't say that. You serve as a consultant, don't you?
Well, I do work reduced hours, so it's kind of like being part-time, isn't it?
I had no clue, but it turns out my sister had been contracted as a consultant with Eastern Tech Innovations. The role of a consultant is to listen to the various concerns that the CEO of the company has, identify challenges in management and operations, and come up with solutions. Especially my sister, who has been contracted with Eastern Tech Innovations for quite some time, now participates in management meetings and offers advice on running the business. She never talked about her work, so he'd absolutely no idea. I just knew she was working part-time, so I assumed she was helping out with clerical work or something. But to think she was actually consulting for Eastern Tech Innovations, that would explain why she's a major shareholder.
This is Carter from Carter Manufacturing.
My sister introduced, and the chairman silently nodded.
For a while now, you've been calling people poor and throwing around insults. So,
the CEO stammered. That was, a bit of a misunderstanding.
the company does not tolerate such attitudes. It's unacceptable, not just within our walls, but also when dealing with our partners.
The CEO apologized. No, I deeply apologize. I had no idea it was a chairman. I would never have said such things. I was completely fooled.
At the CEO's apologies, the chairman let out a heavy sigh. That chairman declared, "Anyway, from now on our company will no longer do business with you."
And the CEO exclaimed, "What? That's $200 million in business."
As the chairman made his position clear, the CEO collapsed onto the floor, holding his head in despair.
Emily said, "I'm sorry for today's trouble."
"Kitchen," I said. It was supposed to be a matchmaking meeting between Emily and me, and I felt sorry that it had turned into such a commotion.
I said, "I'm the one who should apologize. It was a pleasure to meet you despite the circumstances."
As I lowered my head, my sister and the chairman looked sincerely apologetic.
The STO proposed wasn't Emma's, styling. It's my daughter's quite the beauty, isn't she? How we call it. Even I'll give my blessing to your marriage in exchange for closing the deal.
As he said this, the CEO turned towards my sister with a smile. Recent PPO's appalling behavior, treating his daughter as nothing more than a bargaining tool, sparked a different kind of anger in me.
I said, hey, that's just not right.
Emily said, I would really like to get to know John and Jane better. Could you tell me more about both of you?
Well, I'm touched by your feelings, Emily. I'd be happy to start dating you with marriage in mind.
Emily, good for you. That's it. Then the marriage is decided, well done.
CEO was all smiles, slapping Emily on the back with delight. If Emily and I were to marry, the nearly lost deal would be signed and the company would be back on track. Despite Emily being a really remarkable woman, I simply cannot tolerate her father's, the CEO's, conduct.
Emily chimed in. I don't want to go out with John, but I'm cutting ties with my father after today's. Hey, but what in the world are you saying, young lady?
So what I'm saying is, I no longer need a father who takes pleasure in looking down on others. I'm cutting ties, so the company's affairs have nothing to do with me.
Emily's clear eyes seemed to pierce straight through my heart as she looked at John, Jane, and me. John, Jane, if you're okay with someone like me, I'd like to start dating John with marriage in mind. Absolutely thrilled. You found a good match, haven't you? My sister said, beaming as she patted John on the shoulder.
That's wonderful news. Please allow me to offer my congratulations as well. The chairman who had been listening beside her also beamed at us with a full-faced smile and blessing.
In a room filled with matrimonial cheer. The CEO alone was dejected, sinking to his knees. No, this can't be. I don't want to believe it. With a deal worth $200 million turning to ashes and being disowned by his daughter, the CEO was sprawled on the floor, burnt out like embers. It's been a year since then. Emily and I officially started dating and got married. Thanks to my sister's help, it goes without saying that we had a grand wedding, blessed by many. While we living a blissfully happy married life, the CEO faced some tough times after losing a $200 million deal. The CEO's company had to sell off most of its departments to deal with massive debts. My sister believes that the CEO's inherently arrogant and dismissive nature is why this incident was taken so seriously. As a result, he was forced to resign, taking responsibility for the company's huge losses after being pushed out of various ventures. Now, someone else is working hard to turn the company around. Afterwards, the CEO tried to leverage his experience by becoming a consultant. But as mentioned earlier, his reputation for being haughty and arrogant preceded him, and he didn't manage to attract any clients. So now he's reluctantly working part-time as a janitor, and from what I hear is getting chewed out daily because he can't do the job right. As for me, I'm enjoying a smooth start to our married life. Having a wonderful partner like Emily has given me even more drive in my work. She's going to free that Lisa Silas. With a baby on the way next year, I want to cherish my family even more.